Hello everyone, and welcome back to BioScholar. In today's video, we're diving into the water cycle. What exactly is the water cycle? It is the natural system that keeps water moving endlessly through our environment. Water continuously shifts between land, oceans, the atmosphere, and underground reservoirs. It never stays in one place permanently. Instead, it keeps circulating in a continuous loop, and the driving force behind this entire system is the heat from the sun. The process occurs in 4 stages, and the starting point is evaporation. When the sun heats water in oceans, rivers, lakes, and even wet soil, the water gains energy. This energy changes liquid water into water vapor, an invisible gas. This vapor rises upward into the atmosphere, but evaporation isn't working alone. Plants also release water vapor through their leaves, a process called transpiration. Together, evaporation and transpiration are often called evapotranspiration, and they release massive amounts of moisture into the air every day. This rising vapor forms the moisture needed for cloud formation. Without evaporation, the rest of the cycle wouldn't exist. As water vapor rises higher, it enters colder layers of the atmosphere. Here, the temperature drops, and the vapor cools down. When it cools enough, it changes back into tiny liquid droplets. This change from gas to liquid is called condensation. These droplets begin to gather around dust particles in the air, forming clouds and fog. When millions of droplets come together, clouds become visible. Over time, the droplets combine, grow larger, and prepare for the next stage. Condensation is the reason clouds form. Dew settles on grass in the early morning, and water droplets appear on cold surfaces. When clouds become overloaded with condensed water droplets, gravity takes over. The droplets become too heavy to stay suspended in the air. They fall back to Earth as precipitation. Precipitation can take many forms depending on air temperature. The first form is rain. This happens when water droplets inside the clouds stay in liquid form and become heavy enough to fall back to the Earth's surface. The second form is snow. Snow forms when water vapor freezes into tiny ice crystals high in the atmosphere, creating snowflakes that fall gently to the ground. Next is hail. Hail forms when strong upward winds inside storm clouds push water droplets into extremely cold layers again and again. Each trip adds a new frozen layer, turning the droplet into a solid ball of ice. And then we have sleet. Sleet forms when raindrops begin to fall as liquid but freeze into small ice pellets before they reach the ground. All these forms of precipitation return water to Earth, refilling rivers, lakes, forests, and soil, keeping life going. After falling to the ground, water begins to gather in different places. Some of it flows into rivers and streams, eventually making its way back to the oceans. Some collects in ponds and lakes, staying there until it evaporates again. A portion seeps into the soil and becomes groundwater, stored deep inside aquifers. And some water runs off hills and mountains, feeding reservoirs, farmlands, and natural habitats. This is where water rests, but only for a while. Soon, the sun's heat starts the process all over again, lifting water back into the atmosphere and restarting the entire cycle. This is the diagrammatic explanation of the water cycle. It starts with evaporation, where liquid water turns into gas and rises into the atmosphere. As the vapor moves upward, the temperature drops, and it condenses back into tiny liquid droplets. These droplets gather to form clouds. When the droplets become too heavy for the clouds to hold, they fall back to Earth as precipitation, in the form of rain, snow, hail, or sleet. Finally, the water accumulates in rivers, lakes, oceans, and reservoirs. From here, the sun heats it again, and the entire process starts all over. The water cycle is not just a natural process, it's the backbone of life on Earth. First, it maintains a constant supply of fresh water. Without this cycle, we would simply run out of usable water. Second, it regulates Earth's temperature and climate. Evaporation cools the environment, while cloud formation and rainfall help balance heat around the planet. Third, it supports all living organisms. Plants need water to grow, animals depend on rivers and lakes, and humans rely on groundwater, rainfall, and stored reservoirs. Fourth, the water cycle keeps ecosystems healthy. Forests, farms, wetlands, and oceans all depend on the continuous movement of water to survive and function. And finally, the water cycle drives agriculture. Rainfall feeds crops, nourishes soil, and fills irrigation systems, making food production possible. Now that we understand how important the water cycle is, it's also crucial to see how human activities are affecting it. The truth is, the natural balance of the water cycle is not as stable as it used to be. When forests are cut down, the amount of transpiration drops, which reduces moisture in the air and affects rainfall patterns. Pollution from industries and vehicles releases chemicals into the atmosphere, disrupting cloud formation and contributing to acid rain. Urbanization replaces soil with concrete, increasing surface runoff and reducing the amount of water that can seep into the ground to become groundwater. And of course, climate change is speeding everything up, causing longer droughts, sudden floods, unpredictable storms, and uneven rainfall. All these activities interfere with the natural flow of the water cycle, making it harder for ecosystems, agriculture, and even communities to get the water they need. So yes, our activities are changing the water cycle in ways we can't ignore. But before we wrap up, now, let's look at a few interesting things about the water cycle, details most people never even think about. For starters, only about 3% of all the water on Earth is fresh water. And most of that is locked away in glaciers and ice caps, which means the amount we actually use is incredibly limited. Another fascinating point is how strongly the sun controls this entire system. Nearly 90% of all evaporation on the planet happens because of solar heat. Without the sun's energy, the water cycle simply wouldn't exist. And here's something that always surprises people. Clouds may look soft and weightless, but a single cloud can actually weigh millions of kilograms. That's because it's packed with tiny droplets, all suspended in the air. And finally, the water we drink today isn't new. It's ancient. The same water that dinosaurs once drank is still moving through the cycle today, constantly cleaned, reused, and returned. And that's the amazing journey of water, from oceans to clouds, rain, and back again. The water cycle keeps our planet alive, supports life, and provides the fresh water we depend on. By protecting our natural resources, we can keep this cycle running for generations to come. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more science stories on BioScholar.